The Clemson football team has its sights set on the 2025 season, but how close are they to really being another playoff contender? We'll break down their schedule, their key players, the matchups, and more. Plus, Clemson basketball is quietly making history in the ACC. Can Brad Brownell's team keep it rolling? That's coming up today on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. And as you heard, our show breakdown today, we're going to be talking some Clemson football, breaking down the 2025 schedule and some of the key games, looking at their playoff chances and how likely are they to return to the college football playoffs. And then also taking a look at, because we have to give some props to the men's basketball team, taking a look at their next couple of games and seeing what they can do to get some respect on the national scene. Before we get into anything, I want to let you know who I am. My name is Morgan Thomas, and I am the new host of Locked On Clemson podcast and YouTube channel here. As you know, we've kind of had a little bit of a lull between hosts, and I'm so thankful to be able to be a part of the show. As you may not have seen me, or maybe you have, but I am a producer and host over on 105.5 The Roar FM and on Mickey Plyler's show in the morning on Thursday mornings. And I do my own show, The Morgan Thomas Show, during football season. Started about 5-6 years ago on Facebook Live and YouTube. And I also have a Twitter or X handle, The Morgan T Show. So you can follow me over there. If you've seen any of the passing charts, I do the passing charts. If you've seen any of the roster management updates, I do those as well. But if you haven't heard of me, well, you can see me right here on Locked On Clemson podcast and YouTube channel. So really, really excited to be part of the team, combining their expertise with my love for the Clemson Tigers. I think it'll be a good partnership going forward. So tune in every single weekday, Monday through Friday. You should have a channel or a video from me and a podcast. So check it out. I look forward to being a part of your morning, your first listen, your morning listen here for the Clemson Tigers. Before we get into anything, Super Bowl 59 is coming up soon. It's here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. So download the app or head over to FanDuel.com and get started today. All right, so you see today's show rundown that I have up there. We're going to talk key games for 2025. Can Clemson make another playoff run, and then give some men's basketball team some love as well? Don't forget to get in the comments as we go so that I can look at them and update throughout the week and respond to you. And don't forget to follow me again over the Morgan T Show over on X. All right, so breaking down the 2025 schedule, and I know what you're thinking. It is February 2nd or 3rd right now, I guess, as you're listening to this. So we're breaking down the schedule, and it's very early on, but there are some big games that you need to be aware of. You need to have circled, and you need to not have your weddings if you're engaged on. Now, really, the whole schedule, you don't need to have a wedding on. So go ahead and look at the whole schedule and block out all of those weeks and just decide for yourself that you are not having a wedding on those days, and make it great for all Clemson fans to agree with you in that. Now, there are a few that I wanted to point out, and I know they're not going to be all of them. I know you're going to tell me I missed one in the comments, and you should. You deserve that. But the games that I'm looking forward to, or the biggest games that I have on my list, one has to be the season opener against LSU. Week 1, August 30th. Every regular season, this is the first ever regular season meeting. And every game so in the past couple of games has been great. You have the college football playoff game that they had. Now, that wasn't so great. Brent Venables could not find an answer against the LSU Tigers in that game. And unfortunately, really, I mean, who could? With Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, really no chance. Justin Jefferson, I mean, really, it's hard to even beat that team. Brent Venables could not beat that team. Maybe one of the best college football teams we've ever seen, at least on the offensive side of the ball, for sure. They had a lot of studs on the defense too, so I don't want to knock them there. But this will be the first time that they've played in the regular season. And, Dabo Swinney has had success against Les Miles. And that was kind of like the spark, really, the 4th and 16, the game that really put Dabo on this path towards a national dynasty and made Clemson a brand, right? A national brand. So this LSU game is big. Now, they're bringing in a ton of transfers. So it'll be hard to say what you think about this team, but I think that Clemson has a great shot to show what they can do, because in the past couple of years, past couple of seasons, what have we heard? What have we seen? Dabo has kind of struggled in the season opener. And so this will be one where we can see if Clemson has gotten back on track. Now, against Georgia, it was tough. They didn't have success with DJU. They didn't have success in Duke. They didn't have success against Georgia this year with Cade Klubnik. And I think this year it kind of really frustrated me, because looking back, they didn't play their best players. They didn't play Sammy Brown. They didn't play their wide receivers and Wesco and Moore. And you could say, oh, well, they were newbies. They were freshmen. They were just getting started. I don't care. I want you to play the best players. And looking back, those guys, they earned their right. They needed to be on the field. And maybe the game, just maybe the game would have been a little bit different. I don't know. Maybe Georgia would have still won the game. But I'd like to have a go at it again. And against LSU, those players are going to play. So I feel very excited for that national matchup against LSU. And plus, it's an SEC game, so you always got to think about that added to it. And then Florida State is the next one. Now, I know what you're saying, but Morg, Florida State, they were 2-10. They're a terrible team. But this game has often decided who's going to be the top dog in the ACC. And Florida State is transfer portal university. They are definitely swapping players out faster than you can think. And they have a new quarterback in Thomas Castellanos. They have Squirrel White. They have Deuce Robinson. They still have the same running back. They have a bunch of guys on defense as well that they've switched out. So this team is going to be completely different. Will they be another terrible team? No. Florida State, I think, is kind of what we expect. They're going to be kind of that team that every year, you're really not going to know what to expect from the Seminoles. It kind of stinks to be that way. The one interesting thing is it's going to be in November. So it's not as early on as it's been the past couple of years. You have to wait till November to see that game. And will Clemson be able to beat them? I think they have a good chance for sure. But it is really, you don't really know, because the team is going to be so different for Florida State. Another game I have is Louisville. Louisville, is going to be a Friday night road game. And after a short week with FSU, could be a big time trap game for Clemson. Louisville, what I warned so many people about last season, and you thought I was overreacting. You said, Morgan, you're overreacting with this Louisville thing. I felt like that was going to be a trap game in 2024, and it ended up being a loss, because Louisville has a very good running game and they know what to do with it. I understand that Louisville fans were starving to beat Clemson. I mean, I had talked to many of them when they had a chance with Lamar Jackson and they couldn't do it. And I know that they were starving for a win. Now they've got that win in Death Valley. Now they're going to want to go and get that win at their home stadium. And the Louisville teams under Jeff Brom are going to be a high-powered offense. And plus, this will be another one of those tests to see if Clemson's defense has really cleaned up a lot of the problems that they had in 2024. And what has Tom Allen really done? So this will be a prove it for me. And then finally, I have South Carolina. You have to put them on the list because of that just heartbreaking loss, the second heartbreaking loss in a row. Clemson has to get revenge. Now, thankfully, they've just absolutely dominated in Williams-Brice Stadium. So that season finale is going to be another one where you've got to get that win to be able to kind of redeem yourself from the woes of 2024. So Louisville, the game opener, and South Carolina, definitely those redeemable games that you have to have on your schedule. They also get to play SMU. I don't have them as one of my top on the list, but SMU, a team that was in the ACC championship game. Syracuse, a team that got them in the ACC championship game. And then Duke, a team that they need to get some revenge on as well. But circling everything, I think you have to put it on, really, for me, LSU, South Carolina, your two SEC teams. You got to win that opener, prove that you can be a powerhouse in the opening game. And you also got to shut South Carolina Gamecock fans up and prove that, hey, you know what to do and you can get back into the winning ways in that. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about the ways to the playoff. Can they get there, or the case against Clemson getting into the playoffs? Will they be able to make it or not? We'll talk about that. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, well, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, segment number 2. Can Clemson make it to the college football playoffs? The case for or against Clemson in the college football playoffs. I think really, let's start with the good. Let's start with the case for Clemson, because, sometimes I can be a little bit skeptical as a Clemson fan, been hurt all these years over the time. But let's start with the case for Clemson. And Cade Klubnik has got to be number one on my list because, I have criticized him over the years. But Cade has really grown and developed over the years. Now, he started out as one of those guys you really couldn't trust. We called him the new puppy. He was going to be cute and adorable, but he's going to pee on the rug. He's going to chew up the couch. He's going to do things that really frustrate you. And he still has those tendencies to do those things from time to time. But he should be one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC. And if things go well for him, he could be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. With the guys that he has around him, the guys in the wide receiver room that he has, he could really be able to light up the scoreboard. And I'm very excited for Cade Klubnik in basically his final year at Clemson before he goes on to what I think is the NFL. Now, how will he do it is really up to him. But I think Cade is one of those guys where he's not going to really lose you a game, but he's got to show that he can get over the hump. He's got to have those marquee wins. I posted about this on X a couple of times, but really the reason why Cade is not in that Heisman Trophy running is because of those key marquee wins. He has a lot of the stats that are better than a lot of the good quarterbacks out there that get a lot of national coverage more than him. But the problem is that marquee win is just not there. And it wasn't there for 2024. It really wasn't there for 2023, other than you could maybe say the Tar Heel game in the ACC championship game, but that's not really a marquee game as we know in the national coverage. So Cade needs his marquee game. Is he going to get him? Yeah, he's going to have a good LSU team to start out. He's going to have a good, I think, Louisville team. I think the Florida State team, as I mentioned, could be completely different than last year, so don't knock last year on them. And then the South Carolina game with Lenora Sellers for sure as well. So Cade's going to have his opportunities. He's going to have to take advantage of them. He's going to have to be situationally better. I don't blame everything on Cade. A lot of it in 2024, I blame on really the coaching staff and Dabo Swinney and his situational play calling. I really do. Cade, on the other hand, he's got to still clean it up, In situations where he needs to live to fight another day, he needs to live to fight another day. He doesn't need to get a big turnover like against South Carolina. In situations where he needs to live to fight another day, he doesn't need to roll out and take a 6-yard loss. He needs to just throw the ball away. So there's things that he can clean it up to improve and make himself a better quarterback. And I think any top quarterback, any player is going to want to find ways that they can get incrementally better. Now, will he get 30, 40% better? I don't think so. But he's definitely somebody that you can rely on. He's not going to lose a game for you, but can he get over the hump and get those marquee wins? That's the big thing for me. But Cade, I think you have to have more confidence than less confidence for Cade Klubnik. So for me, I'm making him a case for Clemson getting into the college football playoff. The next thing is the defense. I think with the add of the transfer portal that Dabo Swinney has now all of a sudden embraced, which is just, I mean, we need to take a minute and just step back and just thank our stars about Dabo embracing the transfer portal after many years of just kind of waiting and seeing. He's filled in some gaps that he needed with Will Help at defensive end and getting a new coach, a defensive coordinator in Tom Allen. Two key things. But again, it goes back to I can understand why fans are frustrated because he kind of made his own bed with both of those things. He pitched us on the fact that he didn't really need the transfer portal. And guess what? We saw tons of gaps in the defensive line, tons of injuries there. And guess what? The run game, the defensive run stopping was non-existent in a lot of games. And then we were sold on this idea that he could grow and develop Wes Goodwin. And now we've seen that really wasn't the case. He needed to get Tom Allen. And I think it's great for Dabo because as Dabo gets older, he doesn't need to be babysitting and teaching people how to be coaches. And really, as many fans have said over the years, when this all went down at the very beginning, Dabo has built Clemson into a powerhouse. Clemson is no longer the science experiment for coaches. They don't need to be the place where you get your feet wet. Clemson is a place where you need to have proven coaches at your places of most importance in your coordinator positions. He's now got Garrett Riley, a guy who built himself outside of Clemson. He's got Tom Allen, a guy who's built himself outside of Clemson. And he's got Matt Luke, a guy who's built himself outside of Clemson. And those places, those areas of the team, I believe, are improving and headed in the right direction. And when you get guys that are former head coaches, it's even better because you've got guys who can really run it without much supervision. And so Dabo can focus on the things that matter the most. And that's what's key for the head coach is maximizing his availability for the things that matter the most. So Cade Klubnik is a case. Dabo's changes in the offseason is a case for me. And then those big time games that they have on their schedule, that LSU, the South Carolina for me are big. SMU might be a big one. Florida State might be a big one. Those games are there for the taking for Clemson. They could easily be undefeated. If you look at their schedule, they could easily be a one-loss team. And as we've seen in the college football playoffs this season, that one loss, two loss, even if you win your championship game, 3 loss is not a killer. And there's pros and cons to that college football as a whole. That LSU game being as it's the opener, just like the Georgia game, not a killer anymore. So is the hype kind of died down? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But I think it's good overall because the team can still live and the rest of the season matters and they can still improve and not have to weigh themselves down at the beginning of the season. And if you really think about it, the beginning of the season game was always watered down at the end of the season anyway. So, but Clemson has big time games on their schedule and they can win those games and they can be one of the top teams in the country based on the schedule that they play. Now, on the flip side, when we quickly look at the case against Clemson and the college football playoffs, can they win big games? That would be one big question. Now, Morgan, can they win big games? As I mentioned, can Cade Klubnik do it? Can Dabo Swinney do it? I feel like the Louisville game and the fact that they got gashed in the running game, that was Dabo Swinney's fault in not really filling his gaps in the roster management. When he saw gaps there with lack of recruiting, he didn't go out and fill it, and he just said, okay, well, the guys we have can win those games. I think so, but there were obvious glaring gaps there. Then with the South Carolina game, there were obvious gaps there with coaching. And so and then special teams, there were some gaps there. So, he's went in and got Tom Allen. maybe those things will be able, hopefully those things will be able to help them get over the hump, because Cade Klubnik needs it. Dabo needs it. Clemson as a whole needs to not get out of this whole, can't win these big games that they've had this issue with the past couple of seasons. And it's really not what Dabo Swinney is known for. Dabo Swinney is known for actually winning those big games and overcoming the odds against those teams that he should lose against. So getting back into the best is the standard, not, hey, we lost the game, but we did our best. That's not really what we had come to know as best is the standard. Best is the standard is we could beat anyone and almost everyone on any given day because we're at our best and we have the best players and the best coaches, right? Another question against Clemson is, what if Cade has a little bit of a slump? What if he struggles? What if he reverts back? I would say Cade is the least of my worries. I don't worry about him reverting back to, just turning the ball over a ton. I really think he's going to continue to build and grow and be an even better quarterback than he was in 2024. So I just completely scratched Cade Klubnik off. And again, I've been one of those guys that's been pretty, skeptical about Cade, but I think it is okay for him. And then about the ACC, there's the lawsuit, there's the wanting to go to the SEC and blah, 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 and all this stuff, but wanting to go to the Big Ten, whatever you may speculate out there. I do feel like even still being in the ACC, the fact that they're a Power 5 conference, the fact they have a full conference with a bunch of teams and now even added in some teams that aren't even on the Atlantic coast, I think it's perfectly fine. To me, I understand the joke about the schedule and the teams aren't as good, but I mean, Clemson is a big fish in the ACC. I don't hate it. I really don't. I know you're going to say, but Morgan, the bigger games are in the SEC. I get it. The bigger matchups would be in the Big Ten. Maybe, maybe not. They have bad teams in those other conferences as well. Now, the ACC didn't do anything to help their case in the bowl season this year. But the ACC is definitely still strong enough. They have the right teams. Do they have all the best teams? No, they don't. But Clemson is still the best team or one of the best teams in the ACC. And so they're still the top dog, being the champion, the incumbent champion right now. So I would say I'm not worried about the conference either. Really, it's just win the games that are in front of you and everything will go fine. We've seen it. One-loss team's going to get in. A zero-loss team, well, definitely. A one-loss team, definitely. Two-loss team, definitely. We've seen that too. So even a three-loss team we've seen has chances. So, with the 12-team playoff, it's not as bad as you may think. So no panic there for having to switch conferences. If it were up to me, and you can tell me what you think about it in the comments, but I really wouldn't switch conferences. I would just stay in the ACC until they get a super conference or a super league. Then I would move into that. I wouldn't really just move for the SEC for better games. I really wouldn't move to the Big Ten for better games because there's going to be some things that you give up as well when you do those. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about Clemson basketball, finish up the show, they're on the verge of making history in the ACC, and what is really driving their incredible road winning streak right now. All right, Clemson men's basketball team, really, I've been bragging about them a ton. They're 10-1 in ACC play, and they have a really good chance of really kind of dominating the next two weeks of games, maybe even the rest of their schedule. Now, there is a few games in there that you go, this one's going to be tough, but thankfully one coming up this weekend is against Duke, the best team in the ACC, the one that's above them, number one. Clemson's number two. And that is going to be at Little John Coliseum. So you get it as a home game. So I'm really excited for that. Now, there are a lot of fans over on X and social media platforms that are complaining about the fact that ESPN's not giving it College Game Day. And I would say, to be honest with you, I have kind of moved on from all of that because we know what we know. And I'm not going to be super negative about a national brand, but we know what we know about College Game Day and how those political things are in the background. And Clemson's not going to be that team that gets the win over certain things, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. You've got number one ACC team and a number two ACC team matching up against each other. To me, that's got to be the biggest game of the weekend, and the game that they're picking is definitely not the biggest game of the weekend. So, but let's go away from College Game Day because that's all politics. We know that. But Clemson is 10-1 in the ACC and has won 4 straight ACC road games. And they're on the verge of history because, they've got Georgia Tech coming up Tuesday. Then they got Duke, as I mentioned, Saturday. And then they've got the Tar Heels again at home on the Monday after the Super Bowl. Don't forget the Super Bowl, as I mentioned. So they've got those games coming up. Really, they should win Georgia Tech. They should win North Carolina, which is crazy to say. And they have a decent chance of beating Duke. Now, that's going to be tough. I got to be honest with you, but it's at home. And, crazier things have happened in Little John Coliseum. The fans are going to be there. You know it. I know it. They're going to be there. So those 3 games, big time for Clemson. Now, the total 5 games, I think, then as we mentioned, Florida State and SMU. Florida State, they're going to go on the road, and Florida State's not the Florida State of old. They could win their 5th straight ACC road game, which hasn't been done since 1987. 1987. Okay, I'm 38 years old. I was born January 1987. So we're talking, 38 years ago since they have been able to win 5 straight ACC road games. Big, big deal. Why are they doing it? Can they keep doing it? Well, regardless of what happens against Duke, I think the rest of their schedule tees up perfectly good for them. I think their veteran leadership does great. And then you got Brad Brownell, who is a good coach. As much as you want to complain about this or that, he's really kind of proven that he can do really well in the transfer portal era. And starting from the start of the season, when you look back in November, late November, December, I posted this on X at the Morgan T Show. Chase Hunter and Ian Shefflin did not have a fall off. They picked up right where they left off from last season. And so those guys are super strong, and Chase Hunter is hitting clutch shots. He's not only driving the ball to the basket much more confidently than he ever has, but he's shooting threes lights out. And when he gets hot, man, you're not going to lose that game. I'm sorry. Chase Hunter, when he's hot, I have every bit of confidence that Clemson's going to win the game. And then you add in Ian Shefflin, who's really just, again, picked up where he's left off in the rebounding, just dominant against the boards. And even when he is not on the box score, the team, he helps the team out in rebounding. Victor Locken is an addition in the transfer portal that's been killing it in blocks. Dylan Hunter, Chase Hunter's younger brother, has been getting a ton of steals. And Chelsea Wiggins has kind of grown up a little bit too and been more dependable. And they're getting clutch performances. Now, they went back and forth against NC State, a former Final Four team that's just a shell of themselves. Their coach got this big extension after that miraculous Cinderella run that they had last season. And NC State is nothing like what they used to be, and they couldn't get anything going this weekend. And Clemson really just it was neck and neck for the first half, but in the second half, they just kind of got on a roll, started hitting threes. And even when NC State hit a few here and there, Clemson was able to kind of dominate and stay above 10. Hunter led the way with, I believe, 20 points. Locken had 13. Wiggins had 11, I believe. So Clemson, their biggest strength in 2024, 2025 has been just the balance of being able to, when one guy isn't working, another guy typically steps up. Where I've seen them struggle against like Boise State and Louisville, South Carolina which those are frustrating losses for sure. It's just, they weren't able to get everything going, and they get on these like runs where they're just absolutely can't figure anything out. They're just cold. And they can't even get the easy baskets to go down. That's where it's frustrating to watch as a fan. Clemson, though, for the most part, has been able to avoid those kind of droughts. But when they get them, it can be brutal, because it seems like the only thing Brad Brownell can do is find an ISO and try to get Chase Hunter involved, try to get someone like Zachary involved in the ISO. And that doesn't always work out for them. So if they can avoid their long droughts of not scoring, I think Clemson is definitely a contender for the ACC title. I think they're definitely a contender for one of the top seeds in the tournament, and they can, continue this run. Really, when a lot of people say, but Morgan, they're not a top 25 team. They're not getting that respect. They're not getting the game day this weekend against Duke. And I get it. I get the frustration, but that's all outside noise. Control the controllables, as they say in all those leadership books. So the controllable for Clemson is just to win the next game in front of them. And the next game is Tuesday, Tuesday, Georgia Tech, Saturday, Duke. If you look at the 5 games, they easily could be, I won't say easily because Duke's in there. I would say 4-1 is a high possibility for me. That's what I'm looking for. And 5-0 could be big time for Clemson on the national stage. You won't be able to ignore them if they do either one of those things for sure. They're already on the fringe of the top 25 anyways. But again, it's not about that. It's really about just winning the next game that's in front of you. They're quietly the toughest team, one of the toughest teams in the ACC, and they just need to keep the momentum going. All right. So, hey, that's it for the show today. Tomorrow, I'm going to get into some more on the schedule. I'm going to talk probably some Clemson baseball, more basketball, and then maybe try to even get into some Clemson recruiting. You know how I do. I have all kinds of topics, and I probably have 15, 16 topics and I only get to 3. So you try to keep me grounded in the comments if you can. What do you think about the playoff chances? Tell me in the comments. What do you think about Clemson's basketball run? And do you think they'll be able to break history at Florida State? And don't forget to subscribe to Locked On Clemson on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono, Kenton Gibbs, they keep it real and bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's it for today's Locked On Clemson. We'll be back tomorrow with more coverage on Clemson football and basketball. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.